Good morning, Bob.
Good morning, Drew. How are you? It's good to be with you.
You as well, man. I always love our time together. And currently, you and I are braving this great snowstorm, 2025 here in Nashville.
Yes, snow apocalypse or something like that, and we're drinking coffee. So
Cheers. It's
cheers.
our city's funny, man, because our northerner friends, if they knew like how we act when a little bit of snow comes in, they would just shake their heads at us.
Yeah, yeah. Although I did tell a buddy, a client in Connecticut, that we were having a snow day today, and he said, "Oh, really? Tell me." And I said, "Well, it's between 3 and 7 inches. That's not nothing." And he's like, "Oh, I'm surprised. That actually is a good amount of snow."
That's decent
So
for us. Yeah. Yeah. We'll probably be
we're
out of
playing with the
school
big
for
boys now.
3 or 4 weeks. I don't know.
Yeah, exactly,
Your wife's a
exactly.
school teacher, so she probably does she enjoy it? Does she enjoy these breaks or
She does, she loves it. This
yeah.
morning, I was in between doing a little work, and I went downstairs, and she was just smiling, had a big smile on her face, watching her show, laying in bed, like,
Oh,
"Oh, I
that's
don't
great.
do this on during the weekdays, it's awesome." I'm like, "Well, you enjoy it, you deserve it."
Yeah, absolutely, good for her. That's great. Well,
Yeah,
I've got 4 kids running around in the house, so if you hear something in the background, you'll know that's them home from the school day and
yeah.
or a dog barking or anything like that, but well, this is fun, man. I've been excited about this. You and I we have these conversations from time to time, whether it's over coffee or whatever. I've learned a great deal from you. You've been in this space for a long time, and maybe at some point we'll get into some more of that in your story. And but let's just kick it off. Why human algorithm? What's behind this name, this idea? Let's riff on that for just a minute.
Yeah. Well, I've enjoyed my conversations with you as well, Drew. And I know one of the things that we enjoy connecting on is this idea of marketing and communication. And we're both marketers at heart,
Mhm,
although we kind of have multiple interests. I know music is one that we share and
mhm.
creativity, but it all comes back to this human connection and this human first, human in the loop type thing.
Right.
And the more and longer I go with in my career and the older I get, it always comes back to that. Right now, the scuttlebutt and the talk is around AI and how that's going to dehumanize us, and it's
Mhm,
scary and taking over jobs. And I just keep coming back to there's an unchangeable reality that we can't get away from is that human beings are always going to be necessary and they're always going to have to be in the loop if it's going to work well.
right.
And yes, there's some concerns. So we'll talk about that, I'm sure,
Mhm,
in our show. But I think that's what we connect on because it's a thing that's so unchangeable, it's universal, it's
mhm.
timeless. And that's going to be the center of hopefully what we do with this.
Yeah, and that is what I love about our conversations. I remember back to the first time that you and I met, a little coffee shop there, and we were connected by a mutual friend, but there was such a beautiful moment of connection there where we were able to share our stories with one another. We found some commonality in our journeys, and we became good friends, and it was through that initial connection. I know you and I, that's something that we're super passionate about, like you said, in all of our marketing and with all the clients and businesses and thought leaders that we work with, is how do we leverage just some of this beautiful technology, the AI stuff that's coming out, and how do we make sure we use it responsibly? But also, this is one thing I've learned from you is that it actually drives human connection. You said something before we started recording, and I don't know if you can remember it, but you talked about it AI specifically, and we'll talk about more than just AI. It's just hard to avoid how big a topic this is in our culture, especially in marketing right now. But you talked about it replacing tasks. How did you say that? Do you remember before we started recording?
Yeah, a lot of people talk about AI replacing humans and human jobs. I think rather than thinking of it as replacing jobs and replacing people, think of it as replacing tasks that it's a
Mhm.
task replacement.
Yeah.
And yes, you could argue that you layer up a bunch of tasks and then you replace a job. But really what it does, what you discover pretty quickly is it begins to replace a lot of the tasks that you can outsource that you don't
Mhm.
like, that maybe you're not wired for, or just take up a lot of your time,
Yeah.
and you can be more efficient and free up your time to do the things that you're really passionate about and what you might be better at as a human, and let a
Yeah.
machine do what it's better at.
Well, and to that point, and I know you do as well, we'll use humans as whether it's a virtual assistant or a project manager and all those different things. And part of my expectation with them is that they also use AI to make their jobs and their lives more efficient. So for me, a lot of times I do use AI a lot for tasks and project management stuff, but I also have a real live project manager that I hired, but she is able to do so much more with that. And so I think some of this is just debunking some of the fears around that. And some of it is just embracing what's next. You've done a lot of thought leadership on different modalities and different things that were introduced into media throughout the years and the fear around that and how AI is similar to some of those, those old disciplines, like, a new thing, even internet comes out and how is this going to impact our world and our day? And it does, and there's always shadow sides, there's dark sides to everything. And as humans, we have to be responsible with how we use it. But by and large, it's enriched our lives, and it's made our world better. And so I love that part of it. I think you and I really kind of geek out over philosophy and just kind of the thought process behind marketing. Um, I know for me personally, marketing is kind of in some way a means to an end because it's like in some ways I'm in marketing because of how much I don't like bad marketing. I just love the storytelling. I love the human side. I love that on the other side of a screen or an ad, there is a real person with real needs and real problems that hopefully we can bring a real solution and real an answer to. And I love that. To me, that's just why I do what I do. The tools are great, but I don't geek out so much over the different softwares that are available, different tools that are available, although I love them. It's more of how can I use these things to better the lives of the people that we're serving. Talk a little bit about how you got into just this whole mess of marketing.
Yeah, well, I was hired early in the late '90s by a tech outsourcing firm, and we were selling human skills and human resources in the context of computer programmers and developers. And a tech outsourcing at the late '90s was a real moneymaker. For this reason, is everybody was doing Y2K conversion of computer code, uh,
Mhm.
financial institutions and insurance institutions and the old legacy computer systems. And so um, I learned the tech world. I fell in love with it. I was kind of brought up that way. My dad's always kind of been a tinkerer in technology and gadgets, but I learned early on that there was this thing coming called the internet, and prior to the internet, there was other on ramps to the online world, and I was playing with that. But when I moved to Nashville here in the late '90s, early 2000s, I started a digital marketing agency, and that was around 2001, end of
Mhm.
2000, beginning of 2001. So it was building websites, it was creating email marketing for record labels and publishers and all of the verticals that are here in Nashville. And I just love communication. I love telling stories. I
Mhm.
love being able to get the word out and coming up with creative ideas. And so I really cut my teeth on kind of the wild west of the internet at the time, and saw it kind of evolve and social media come online, and all the different things and regulations come and go, and lots of modalities come and go, and
Mhm.
platforms. But through it all, it goes back to what we started this conversation, is there were principles that people have been doing for 150 years in advertising, and they
Mhm.
haven't changed and they won't change. And I was able to differentiate myself, Drew, with that alone, because everyone
Mhm.
else was chasing the latest tool, the latest gadget, and you still
Mhm.
see that.
Yep.
You hear clients say, I'm supposed to be on YouTube and TikTok, and I'm overwhelmed. And this
Mhm.
person said, like, need to be doing this. And I'm like, no, you don't need to be doing any of that. What you need to be
Right.
doing is picking one or two platforms and just
Yes.
tell a really good human story.
That's great.
And that's all you need to do. And then, measure it and do testing. All these things that good
Mhm.
marketers, storytellers, and advertisers have been doing for decades. And then just let the platforms come and go because they will. Don't get caught up in it.
Yeah, man, that is such great advice. I'm definitely stealing that because I that it's so true, and that's a conversation I'll have with clients from time to time because the pressure that exists in marketing, especially for people who are running a business or they're doing their primary thing, they don't wake up every day thinking about marketing. It's almost like this side thing, like necessary evil, if you will, that I have to do, but I don't want to do that because I want to do my actual job, the actual thing that I'm passionate about. And then you hear all this talk of, you got to post 3 times a day or whatever the latest thing is, and you're just like, I can't do it. I can't do all of it, so I won't do any of it. And I think what you just said is really brilliant. Find the thing. I'll tell clients all the time, find the thing that's sustainable for you. Like, what is something that you enjoy in a way that feels unique and authentic to you and your voice? You don't have to copy or duplicate someone else, like a Gary V or a whoever's doing. Like that's them. That's what they do. Don't start dropping the f bomb just because Gary V does it. If you don't talk that way in real life, don't do it on social
Yeah.
media or wherever. And what I've found is the best results come from those things. What's sustainable? What feels true and unique to your voice? And part of what you and I do is we help our clients and we help them figure that out. Hey, what feels right to you? What is something you could be proud of in your marketing? I think that's a big part of it is a lot of people are like, I don't want to be, that guy, whatever that guy is to them, right? I don't want to be that person who is, XYZ on the internet. And I'm always like, well, you absolutely don't have to be. I want you to be proud to share your marketing because kind of like we talked about earlier, you're solving a problem for someone and you care deeply about this problem that you're able to solve. And if you tap into that side of the emotion and you tell a story from that angle, then you're proud because you don't feel like you're just, you're being too salesy, if you will. So I have a question for you, Bob, because I see your bass guitar in the background. This is
Yeah.
this is what happens when you talk to Drew. We take rabbit trails. Have you ever drawn any connection between what you're doing now in marketing and what you've done in the creative space in music? Like, is there a thread?
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's funny you should say it too, and I'm gonna take a little bit of shameless plug here, so
Okay.
forgive me. But I have my own podcast called The Human Voice with Bob Hutchins, and I just interviewed an old bandmate and friend, and he and I still write music together. His name is Chris Dauphin, and we talked for about 45 minutes about this subject. And he's in marketing and communication. He's also a professional musician, piano player. And we talked about it, so it's fresh in my mind.
Okay.
I think the creative process, it's so important for anybody who is a marketer or communicator. Or I personally believe with all my heart that every human being is creative.
Hmm.
I think the act of thinking, I think the act of coming up with an idea, I think the act of living day to day, um, has elements of creativity in it. So when I hear someone say, I'm just not creative, I don't have a creative bone in my body, I don't think that's true. I think
Hmm.
everybody has that spectrum of creativity that they tap into at different times of the day and of the life in their life, etc.
Hmm.
And the fact that we even have dreams is proof of our own internal creativity. So um, I would say that connection is so important. And as I've gotten older, I've appreciated it more. And I'm sure I will as I get older, because what music does, whether you write music or play other people's music or just learn an instrument, or at whatever level you engage in the act of art, painting, etc., I think what you discover quickly is that your brain can learn new things. um, and when you get, what I appreciate about music specifically is when two people or three people get together and write
Mhm.
music and create sounds and put pieces of things together, you realize that there's something that you both bring to the experience. And the thing that you bring is greater than what you bring separately. And it's a
Mhm.
new thing that you bring. And I think if it's such a beautiful metaphor for life, for communication, for marketing, um, is that we're all wired for story. I really believe that, and I know that's a little trite. I think it's been overused quite a bit, but I think the storylines of beauty and music and the things that resonate, and the more you go down those trails of creativity and art, the more you realize, oh, there's a universal thread
Mhm.
with all human beings. Why is it that we all cry or tear up at a certain part in a movie, many of us? 9 times out of 10, it's the content of the movie, but it's also the music that's being played in the background,
Absolutely.
right?
The sound
If
design
you
is
ever
so
watch
important.
these director's cuts without music,
Yep.
it's not the same. It's
Yep.
flat,
Yep.
right?
Yep. You
What
can
is
change a
that?
track on a video and it totally change the feel of the entire
Yeah.
video. Yeah.
Yeah, we're talking about universal human emotion.
Mhm.
And I guess I was a roundabout way of not answering your question, but that's where I see the connection is the more that you can expand your brain and
Mhm.
creativity. If it, I'll just stop in the middle of the day, and you might do this too, and I'll go pick up my bass, or I'll record a line, or I'll send something, or I'll just pluck away at it, or I'll go for a walk, because what I know about myself is if I'm stuck, my brain needs a rest. It needs
Yes.
to think of it differently. It needs to expand. And then I'll come back to it after playing music, taking a walk,
Mhm.
taking a break. And then all of a sudden, there's a new avenue of creativity or new
Mhm.
idea that's come up.
Mhm.
And to me, that's the human algorithm.
Yeah.
And that's the real need that we have to bring to the table as marketers, and that's what people are hungry for because it's universal.
Yeah. That's beautiful. Great tie-in back to the podcast name too, by the way. I mean, this is like you're such a pro. That was amazing. It's like we planned
Yeah,
it. Well, I love everything you said, Bob, and for me, a walk is huge, and I haven't thought about going to pick up the guitar. It's sitting right over there, but I think it would do the same thing. But yeah, taking a walk in the middle of the day when I need to reset, or I mean, I feel a little bit ashamed when I admit this. If I'll take a little 15-20 minute nap around 1 o'clock, my afternoon is considerably more productive. It's just giving my brain a chance to shut off and reset
absolutely.
and start again. But what I love about what you're saying is whether it's music or marketing or whatever, great marketing, great music, great songs, it's a bit of a framework. And I know Donald Miller does a lot of teaching on framework, but it's a framework. And within that framework, there's a lot of freedom to be expressive and to create, but great marketing has strategy and it has a framework and it has a direction. It would be like starting a song and just having no idea, where it's going to go or where the verse stops and the chorus starts, or, and there is some music like that, not not my favorite type, but some people love it. But I think in marketing it is where that creativity and where strategy, when those worlds collide of like, okay, we have a plan, and within that plan, let's get real creative. I think that's where real beautiful things happen, especially for us creatives that need a bit of a box to play in. We need a sandbox, we need a structure of some sort. And within that structure, we can go wild. If we don't have the structure or the plan or the framework, it can get off the rails pretty quick.
Yeah,
But
and I think it's a bit counterintuitive because you know creativity and structure or guardrails or a box, like you said. It
mhm.
seems like it's kind of not, but here's the reality: is I heard someone recently say that without the 3-point line, there would be no Steph Curry.
Yes, yes. I saw you
And
post that this week on LinkedIn.
yeah,
I read that. It was
yeah, I didn't
great.
come up with that, but I went a little bit further with it because it did jar some things in my mind because we live in this environment, especially today in 2025, where there is this like push and pull about like freedoms and
Mhm.
being able to like not be regulated. And there's arguments on both sides, but I think the reality is there's some beauty and imagine without that 3-point line. Um, it was that all it would be the tallest person on the court standing under the basket. Just it would be boring, right?
Right.
And Steph
Right.
Curry wouldn't have a chance at 6'3".
Nope.
Um, and I think you can apply that to music too. The reason that we have like 3.5-minute songs is because back in the day, on a 45 RPM vinyl at the radio stations, they only had so much that they could play, and
Yeah.
it was like a 3-minute, between 2 and 3.5 minutes.
Hmm.
And so the record label said, you can't do a 5-minute, 10-minute jam session. You've got to get it into 3 minutes.
Yep.
And artists were like, oh, okay, because we're going way back now. But this is what gave rise to, the format. And,
Hmm.
the Beatles and others kind of pioneered this of going, okay, well, we have to do a verse, chorus, bridge out. We had a formula.
Right.
And as a result, it's created like this catalog of
Hmm.
millions of pop songs over
Hmm.
the past 50 years that never would have existed in that format if it wasn't for that limited box that they had to create in.
Hmm.
And you can go on and on about the ways that the box and form and strategies and frameworks have actually increased the world's creativity and art and what's interesting.
Hmm.
I
Hmm.
think that's what you and I love too about marketing is there's frameworks and there's strategies and there's
Yes.
formulas that don't change. They work on
Right.
every platform.
Right, and frankly, I need that. Like, as a creative, I have to have a structure, I have to have that thing, and I love what you're just saying, Bob, because I think about some of the best songwriters I know, and I don't mean this as a slight to them. They're not the best musicians, and in some ways, it works in their favor because they're limited on what they can do on, say, the piano or the guitar or even vocally, and so it naturally puts them into this box. Some of the best musicians in the world who can just go off and shred and do all those different things don't necessarily write the most, I was gonna say, marketable, pop songs or whatever, because it's almost like it's too advanced. It's there's not enough boundaries. There's not enough structure to it. But you give someone with some limitations and they're creative within their own personal limitations and they can create something really beautiful. And I think that's true in any industry that I've worked in, that I'm sure that you've worked in. It's interesting because a lot of my clients will span very vast industries. It's like I can work with construction and then in insurance and then it's like it's all over the place. And someone recently asked me like, who's your niche audience, your niche client or your ideal client? I'm like, it's really anyone who wants to creatively solve problems for people. I mean, it just doesn't really have that much of a, because this framework, in a lot of ways, you can overlay it over just about any business. Now, you got its nuance, you get creative with it, right? And how you tell the story. But those limitations, especially in any business, is kind of what can make you great. So when you're thinking about this podcast, Bob, the human algorithm, give us a little teaser into what are some of the things that we wanna talk about on here,
Yeah.
coming up? Yeah.
I mean, obviously, we'll talk a lot about AI. It's my passion and interest in what I do for a lot of clients. I know you use it too, and
Mhm.
it's something we can't get away from. And I think in the context of the human algorithm, um, it certainly enables and frees up because I think you and I both agree that we agree or realize that AI can do a lot of things much better than
Mhm.
us, but we can do a lot of things a lot better than it. And so, this world that's coming of a co-intelligence of working alongside of AI, humans and human machine world that will be a part of our future, like it or not. I think is going to be very relevant. So we'll talk about that. I also think too is I'd love to talk about some of the counterintuitive and non popular aspects of marketing because I think that edge of the coin that you and I have talked about, the
Yeah.
third side of the coin is where the magic happens.
Mhm.
And so I know an area that you really love to talk about is where do you build your marketing? Uh, uh, and we both agree we don't like building it on rented land,
Mhm.
i.e., on social media and others. We like to use those properties, but we don't like to build our marketing plan on top of them exclusively. So third party data, I think we'll talk a lot about
Mhm.
that,
Mhm.
and how you should be building. And I think at the end of the day, I'd love to talk a lot about these different frameworks,
Yeah.
and proven strategies that we were just talking about. I think we could probably talk for
Yeah.
several episodes about that. How about you?
Well, yeah, I love for people who are listening or watching this to get some great philosophical thought leadership, but also practical. Like I can imagine us doing even some digital unboxing of products that we're
Yep.
using and really helping whether you're a business owner, business leader of some sort, or a marketer. We one thing that you and I are big on, we talked about this earlier, is just community. We want to help develop a community of people who are trying to figure out how to be more connected in life. And I think using marketing as a place of connection. And so whether that is in a forum or a network of some sort where we're all sharing ideas. And one thing that you and I are passionate about is this understanding that we don't have to live and work with a scarcity mindset. That as we share and as we help one another, that there's enough to go around for everybody. And I think in this space, especially when there's fear, but there's questions, and there's just a lot that's going on. I think creating a community here where we can have these conversations, where it's a psychologically safe place to voice our concerns, voice our questions, but also kind of approach with some humility too. Of like, man, there's so much going on, and there's so much it just feels like something new is coming out, you know, every day. And as much as I like to think that I'm on the cutting edge of things, Bob, you're on the bleeding edge. I mean, almost every call, every talk, it's like you're finding a new thing. And so I think part of that is just if we can do some of that work for our friends, if they're like, man, what is a new tool out there that I should know about? You know, we have that conversation all the time. I literally, right before we hit record, was on something that you were telling me about, looking at this new tool that you had found. Well, we want to bring that to people. So I think what you can expect is philosophical thought leadership, the why behind what we're doing, and then we're gonna eventually really kind of get in the weeds a little bit and talk about practically how do we like you mentioned list building. Yeah, practically how are we helping clients build lists? What is that process? How are we using lead generators to get them into our own database, our own ecosystem or email list? And we're just gonna freely share all the stuff. Like we're just gonna just kind of let's just tell them what we're doing, what we know, and then if you're listening or watching, we're also wanting to learn from you. So that's a big part of it, you know. So I'm
Yeah,
excited about this, man.
absolutely.
It's gonna be fun.
Yeah, I'm excited about learning. I'm a lifelong learner, and circling back to the music metaphor is I'm inspired by people like Rick Rubin, the famous
Yeah.
producer. And one of the things that he's famous or infamous, depending on where you stand on this, is he's like, I don't play any instruments. I don't know how to. I don't know how to move a mixing, work a mixing board.
Yeah.
Um, he and people like, well, how do you make all this money? And he's like, I seem to know what sounds good, and people like what I say about it.
Right.
And um, I draw inspiration from that because, I'm not a great bass player. As a matter of fact, I'm really not. I'm bad at it, right? I'm not a amazing songwriter, but I know what I like and I know it sounds good, and I'm
Hmm.
brave enough to be able to go, "Oh, I like this little rhythm and I like how this sounds." And I can surround myself with friends and people who are good at those things and go, take this bass line or this melody or this, let's come together, and they can play it, we can work on things, and then what comes out is a really cool song, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
It
I love
doesn't,
that.
and I want to learn, and I want to surround myself with quote good marketers and good musicians,
Hmm.
that have experienced it, and I can tell them what I've experienced. But I'm not the best marketer in the world. I'm not the
Hmm.
best writer in the world. I'm not the best AI person in the world.
Right.
But I have my own human experience that
Yeah.
is real. And I know what has worked for me and for
Mhm.
clients. And I think it's something beautiful when we all come together, like that songwriting session, right? Like that metaphor with marketing and growth and learning. And I'm excited to get some people on here and interview them that are a lot smarter than us, and or who might not be as far in the journey,
Sure.
that we can help as well. So
Yeah.
that's really important.
It's gonna be a fun journey, especially when 2 Enneagram 7s get together and start talking. So we who knows where
A little
this
dangerous.
this conversation will go. Well, Bob, what are the chances that you build a snowman today? Are they, on a scale of 1 to 10, is it pretty low?
You know, my kids aren't that young anymore, so, I'm gonna have to find my own self-motivation probably to get out and build a snowman.
It's
You
more of a
know,
coffee
getting
by
on
the
a
fire type of day, I think.
honestly, getting on a sled has crossed my mind,
Are
so
you
who knows?
serious? Please
Oh, I
video
love it.
that. If you do that, please make sure you video it so we can have it. We'll share it here.
Lots of hills in my neighborhood, you know that, so
Yeah,
who
well,
knows?
hey, listen, a lot of kids in your neighborhood over there. My kids might find their way over there at some point too and be on those hills. So, Bob, thanks, man. This is fun. I can't wait to do it again.
Yeah, yeah, stay warm.
All right, see you, bud.